Thank you.
Recording in progress.
Okay, so typically we start with you just telling us a brief background about who you are and then why you chose the profession you did, if that's all right.
Okay, sure. My name's Anne Phoong. I am a personal injury lawyer, and I chose to be a lawyer. It wasn't something that I always knew I wanted to do, like when I was younger. It was something that I came to learn that was my calling or passion or whatnot when I was older, in the middle of college. I started off with a business major and realized as I was close to graduating that I wasn't really doing something I was going to be happy with, and took a criminal justice course, fell in love with the justice system, and decided that I was going to go to law school and become a lawyer.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. So now typically we'll open the floor for our members to type their questions in chat so we can read them out to you and kind of get more insight into your career. So I have one
Sure.
from earlier. It was like, what was it like building up your public image? Because we all know you from the billboards around town.
Uh, you know, it actually was a big surprise because when I first started advertising, um, it was something that I definitely had some hesitations, and I was a little afraid of what the response would be from the public. I didn't know if people would be receptive, because we weren't used to seeing, a female, and an Asian female, a minority female lawyer, advertising and putting herself out there. So it was difficult to get over the initial hump of, okay, should we do this, and is this just going to be um, something that's just a waste? And what we found out quickly within having our first like billboards and TV commercials out there was the public was so responsive. The community was, I mean, we've got so many calls that people weren't even calling for our services. They were just calling to say, oh my gosh, this is great to see. I had mothers call and say their daughters are like, hey, there's a lawyer out there that looks like me. And so initially it was, a little bit of hesitation. And then once we realized that people were responding, it was like a light had went on and said it felt as if this is what people needed to see. And we're definitely on the right track. When we first started, it was the idea, the marketing strategy or plan was to kind of blast everything and make sure that you couldn't go anywhere without seeing my face or hearing me or seeing me on TV. And that's kind of what we did and continue to build as we started out in Sacramento, and then we opened up our Bay Area market in 2020, and then Southern California, just last year, and continued our expansion.
That's great. I love to see trailblazers from minority fields kind of opening up the pathways for people to come after them. There's a question in chat. Were there people that tried to bring you down? If so, how did you push through it?
Absolutely. And it comes in different shapes and forms. It comes from strangers. I mean, social media is not friendly. And so, just about that time, Instagram, IG, TikTok, everything is starting to really blow up. And I started advertising in 2016. Um, and so there's definitely negative comments. There's definitely rude, ugly, hateful comments. And then from people you don't expect, like let's say people you thought were your friends, and people talking trash, and even from the community, even other lawyers who didn't know me, were saying stuff. And it's one thing if someone knows you and they have an opinion about you, right? But if you just see someone and they're doing their thing and you don't know if they're good or not, do you really have any right to say anything? So I definitely dealt with a lot of that. And what I learned was, and it's, I am in my mid 40s, and I still feel as though some of that stuff, the negativity, is still difficult to deal with. And, obviously now, you know, after so many years of hearing it and doing it, it's gotten easier to kind of just white out and block out that noise, and understand that if people are hating on you and talking bad about you and they don't know you, um, to really try and take it as a compliment, because they're hating on you and there's no reason. And I try to now, what I try to do is just look through it and ignore. What I do is try ignore comments, don't read into them. And I know it's hard. It's so hard to do as a grown woman. Okay, so I can't imagine what a lot of the kids and students and teenagers and younger people are dealt with because it's ugly. And I don't think it has to be that way, but unfortunately, it comes with the territory. And so my best advice is just as much is build your own confidence, know your worth, know your power, and anything that anyone says isn't going to hurt as much or get to you as much because you know who you are and you know what, you know how badass you are.
That's great advice. Thank you for that. Another question I got sent in earlier was what different types of lawyers there are and how you chose criminal justice lawyer.
So I am personal injury, so it's different. That's criminal. A criminal lawyer is like a public defender, a criminal defense lawyer, or a prosecutor. And I did do that my earlier law school. When I was in law school, I was working for the public defender's office. So I'm in the civil aspect. So that's the other aspect. So you have criminal and you have civil. There's so many different types of law that you can practice, which is the beauty about going to law school and being a lawyer is when you finish law school and you pass the bar, it gives you the bar license and you can practically almost practice any type of law that you're knowledgeable in, right? So there's family law, immigration law, there's estate law. There's so many different areas of law that you can go into. And so my specific area is civil litigation. So civil, you know it as like if someone gets in a car accident and they get hurt, I'm the person that helps the person get hurt. And so I help them get justice through the justice system. And lots of times that's, you guys see that in forms of negligence or intentional tort. If a company messed up and hurt somebody, that's a personal injury as well. And so there's so many different areas of law that an attorney can practice in.
That's really interesting. It's great to see that once you go through law school, you can kind of expand into many different avenues. Another question in chat is, do you know about Jayoma and what is your opinion about him?
Oh my gosh, I don't. I'm sorry. Can you tell me about him?
Can the person who asked that question type a little bit more context into the chat, please? Until then, how was your experience in law school and taking the bar and the exams that you have to pass?
So I went a non-traditional route, and typically law school, the traditional law school that you see is a 3-year law school during the day after you graduate from college, do your undergrad. I did a night program. It was part-time, so it took me 4 years. And I worked full-time Monday through Friday, from 8 to 5, and then went to law school Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or 3 days a week at night from 6 to 9:15. And for 4 years, I did that. So it sounds gruesome, and it was. It was hard. It definitely wasn't easy, but I made the best of it because I knew that it was an opportunity for me to go to law school. I didn't score high enough to get into a top law school. And so I ended up going to what's called a California accredited law school. And people will frown upon that and they think that, oh, those aren't good schools. But I just felt lucky and proud to even be going to law school and potentially be licensed as a lawyer. So I chose to make the best of it. I chose to have a good attitude. And so I enjoyed law school. I enjoyed meeting my friends, my best friends that I still have today. I enjoyed the learning experience. The professors were great. Um, and then taking the bar was definitely difficult at that time. When I took the bar, it was a 3-day bar. It was 8 hours every day for 3 days in a row. And that's the reason why California bar is the hardest bar in our nation. But even during that, I had to study 2 months, and I studied probably 16, 18 hours a day, nonstop, like just continuously. And I passed the bar the first time. So I made it a good experience because I chose and I decided that it was going to be a good experience. It definitely was hard, juggling work and law school at the same time, but I did it. And so it's something, if you set your mind right and positive, it'll be a positive experience. If you're going to go into something negatively and not see the good in it, you're probably going to have a bad experience. So that's one of the things that I've really tried to do is see the light and be positive about things and experiences that are happening to you in your life.
Yeah, thank you. That's really good advice for law school and in general. I got a few questions. I'll just start from the top. What advice would you give to someone who's interested in pursuing a law career?
I would definitely tell them to try and go get an internship to see exactly what type of law they might want to practice because as I mentioned earlier, there's so many different areas and you may not like one area. Let's say criminal law is so different than civil law or family law or immigration, that you might not like criminal law, but you might like corporate law or want to be a civil lawyer or there's different options. So if you really want to potentially go to law school, have a law career, make sure it's what you really want and you find and you see yourself because it's such a commitment. Law school, 3 or 4 years, however long, it's such a big commitment that you have to be 100% certain that this is what you want. And I think the only way of really knowing what you want is exposing yourself to that, right? And so take as many courses, pre-law courses, volunteer, try and get an internship. Those are all great things to do. Interview people, talk to people who are lawyers, talk to professors, anyone that you can speak to that's in the legal field. Get their opinion on it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. The next question is, when you mentioned you realized that you wouldn't be happy with business, how did you realize that law was the right path for you? Do you have any advice for someone struggling to choose a field?
Yes, I do. So business was safe. It was something that I went into undergrad just doing because when they ask you, well, what kind of degree do you want? What do you want to specialize in? And I didn't know, and I was just okay. Well, my sister did business. Business felt safe. It felt like, well, if I have a degree in business, I could do a variety of things. And as I got closer to finishing that out, I didn't enjoy the classes. I didn't feel passionate about it. I didn't want to go to classes. I admit, like I wasn't the best student because I just wasn't fascinated about it at all. I just did it because I had to. So when I had taken a criminal justice course for my general education, I was absolutely fascinated by the class. It was just one class, one semester. I had done my like assignments and my homework, did my projects, and I was so excited to learn. So I think for me, the best piece of advice that I can give, and people searching for, what they want to do and figure out their career and the next step is it's so cliche and it's really about finding something that like makes you smile, something that you're happy doing, something that you want to learn more about. And it's gonna be, if it's gonna be your career and you're gonna be doing it for the rest of your life, why not do something that you're happy doing, right? So if you can figure that earlier on in life and then pinpoint and direct the way you want to go in your career path based off that, that's going to be a lot easier and you're going to find joy in what you do. And I think that's what it's really about is finding something that you feel passionate about, finding something that you feel that is your calling and that you're meant to do and you can see yourself, being in that position.
Thank you for that question. A new question is, when you first launched as a lawyer, were you afraid that you would not get any clients? If not, what convinced you otherwise?
Oh, I absolutely was afraid. And, I did just start my practice out of nowhere. Like I honestly, there was a friend that started his own practice, and I was like, well, if he could do it, I could do it. And so, yes, there is that fear because you can say you're a lawyer, you can have a law firm and have no clients, right? And what is that, right? So yes, I was definitely afraid. And so what I did was I knew that the key was to network and get to know people and put my name out there. And so in the beginning, I didn't just start off advertising. Advertising was something that came, marketing and advertising came about like 5 years after I already started my firm. And so what I did was I went to every single business, whether it was law related or not, whether it was injury or civil related or not. I passed out my cards. I had business cards. I had calendars. I had things with my name on it. I introduced myself and I shook as many hands as I could. And a lot of that is called like pounding the pavement, meaning getting on your feet and going places, going to business, going to events where you're going to meet people. And it wasn't so much that I was very social. I just knew that if no one knew about me, then how am I going to have any clients? So I put myself out there intentionally, um, and and I became more and more comfortable talking to strangers, approaching people, saying, "Hey, I'm a lawyer. If you need anything, call me." And so I knew how important it was to grow my client base organically, and that's exactly the first few years. That's what we did. So, it's that's definitely always a fear, and it's still a problem for many solo lawyers who have their own practice. How do I get clients? And the biggest thing is to spread your name out there. If you don't, no one's going to know about you. No one's going to do the work for you. So you have to intentionally, market yourself, put yourself out there, go to events, talk to strangers, family, friends, have your family and friends introduce you to their family and friends, and build your network.
That is really great. Really exposing yourself around to different people so that you can get contacts is really important for every field. The next
Mhm.
question is, how has the legal field changed in recent years, and has it been difficult adapting around it?
I think, in many areas, not just in law, we cannot ignore AI. And it's just more and more has become apparent that it's here and it's only going to continue to grow. And so what we're finding is that lots of jobs that were that we felt required to have people to do aren't it's not necessarily the case anymore. So it's good and bad as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, because now I can have AI do things for me and automate things, whereas before it would take a lot longer. So for example, the type of law that I do, when people get injured, medical records are very important. Medical records could be 10, 20,000 pages. So in the old days, we would have to read through 10 pages and binders and binders of medical records. And now we submit it, and within hours, we can get a pretty accurate summary of the medical records. And so it saves time, it's efficient, and yeah, it continues to evolve, and we are evolving with it in my practice, and a lot of law firms are as well. So it's nice, but it's also a little scary, and but it's just something that I feel like we need to adapt to.
Yeah, that is really, really important. The next question is, did your experience in business school help you with marketing your lawyer business?
Not really. I wish it did. I really wish it did. I took marketing classes, and I did enjoy that, but I don't think I really applied it in that sense. In business, you do economics and a lot of math courses, statistics, and stuff like that, and I don't really think it did, honestly. My marketing and business skill set came from experience and just coming out on my own and learning. I mean, like I said, when I first started there, the only thing I knew to do was I had no money. So let's be clear. Like, I didn't come from a family that had money that funded my law firm. Like, I had no money. Like, no one gave me this law firm and gave me money and said, here you go. So when I first started, I had nothing. I didn't have much at all to spend on marketing, to spend on advertising. That's why we didn't. So we went organically, and like I said, we networked. And so I would like to say that the business education helped, but it was really the life experiences. There's nothing that's going to teach you more in life than just trial and error, than just trying something. So when we first started advertising, what kind of commercials were working, how long they needed to be, where do we place the billboards, what messages do we say? We played around with a lot of it, and then we continued to adjust and tweak it as it went. There were a lot of times there's just a lot of I wasted a lot of money in certain areas that weren't responding. But that's all trial and error. So there wasn't much that I can accredit to as far as applying the education. It's just more about experiencing, doing, going through, making mistakes and learning from them.
Yeah, trial and error is very, very important. How do you handle difficult clients or tough cases?
Well, that's definitely something that you have to know how to do. A lot of what we do as a lawyer when we deal with clients is we have to understand and put ourselves in their shoes. So people who need my help are in very vulnerable positions because they've been hurt and they're calling me to protect them and to be their advocate. So the biggest thing, sometimes clients they don't understand the process. So the process to get a settlement or to get their case, completed can be very long. And it's not because it's something that we can control as a lawyer. It's the process, it's the system. The courts take years to get a case to go to trial. So sometimes clients can be impatient. Sometimes they don't know. And I think that the best way to handle difficult clients is just to like continue the lines of communication. Very important. If they know what's going on, they're going to understand. If you don't talk to your clients, you don't keep them informed, then they're going to be like, well, I don't know what's going on. Then they get upset. They're unhappy with you, and rightfully so. So it's very, very important to make sure that you communicate with the clients, and there'll be less pushback and less unhappy clients as long as you let them know what's going on. And anytime a client is upset, which it does happen, I always just I apologize, because if they're upset, whether it's a right reason or wrong, their feelings are valid. So I say things like, I'm sorry, you have a right to be upset. Let me explain this to you. Here's how I can help, and here's what I can do. And just really try and calm them down. And 99% of the time, that works. As far as difficult cases, yeah, it's hard because you want to fight for your clients hard, and sometimes when you fight for them hard, you still end up losing, and that's the hard part. Dealing with clients with major injuries, injuries that alter and change their lives. So you want to fight and work hard for them, and so it motivates you, to have that empathy for your clients. And but sometimes, when we don't win or we take a loss, those losses are really heartfelt. It's really hard, because we're so attached to the client and wanting to help them. And in a perfect world, we would win every single case, right? Right? But that's not always the case. So it's difficult in different senses. In difficult cases are difficult for different reasons. It could be difficult because of a liability issue, or difficult emotionally, even for me to handle. But we always just put our clients first, and understand that if we put our best foot and best effort, we're doing right by our clients.
That's great. Always putting your best foot forward is really important. Another question I have is, what is your favorite part about being a lawyer?
That's a good question. So my favorite part is just to be able at the end of the day to help people. And lots of times I'll have clients contact me years after I help them. They'll say, thank you for helping me. Just send me little messages or notes and cards that they're telling me they're doing good and how they value what I help them out with. So it definitely feels like that's definitely the most rewarding part of being a lawyer, is knowing that you're speaking up for people and helping people who can't help themselves. And that's absolutely the best, easily the best part.
That's really great that you can be an advocate for the people. What was the most difficult part for you on your way to becoming the influential figure that you are today?
Yeah. There was a lot of obstacles in my way. as far as becoming a lawyer. So when I first took the LSATs, which is required into going to law school, so you have to take the LSATs, which is a test. It's like the SATs when you go to high school, right? When you're getting into college, and you have to like score high enough. So as I mentioned earlier, I couldn't get into like a top tier law school because my score was very low. So I almost wasn't even accepted to any law school because my score was so low. So even getting admitted into law school was difficult. But I ended up taking the test, scoring low, taking it again, scoring higher, and I ended up being the valedictorian of my class. So getting into law school was one thing. Then when I graduated, I couldn't find a job. When I was graduating, taking the bar, my former firm, I was working for the public defender's office, was supposed to hire me, but there was a hiring freeze. And I had no job. And so I was applying everywhere and I couldn't get a job. I couldn't even get responses. So, that's difficult to be a fresh new lawyer and not be able to have a job. And that's kind of when I stumbled upon the idea of, well, why not just open my own practice? And there was so many definitely difficult times and hard learning lessons when you become not even just a lawyer, but just a business. Because I think, there's two separate things when you own a law firm. You're a lawyer, but then you also have to be a business person. And sometimes a lawyer doesn't know how to be a business person. And you have to be good at both in order to really be a successful, solo practitioner, entrepreneur, lawyer. And so I found that I had to learn, like I said, the education that I had didn't really help me. So I had to learn the hard way by just doing everything on my own, failing, making mistakes, doing it again, wanting to give up. I mean, there were so many times I was like, man, maybe I should just try and find another job and stop running, trying to have my own firm. And so yeah, and a lot of, even now, even to this day, there's a lot of negative comments or people commenting saying I'm not a good lawyer or my firm sucks. So I still deal with a lot of that. But it's gotten a lot easier because, like I said, when you know your value, I know my firm's value, I know the work that we do. It's easier to overcome, all the negativity on that side. But every process has been a learning lesson. It's definitely not easy. I think that we make it look easy, and we always highlight the good times. But I tell you, there's been so many times that I've failed, personally in my life and just in my career as well. So definitely want to be open about that.
Yeah, it's really great that you're open and then that you persevered through all of your struggles to make it to where you are. Have you ever lost a case? And if you have, how did you feel and gather up the courage to just continue?
I have, and I recently lost a case, and yeah, it was hard. We really fought hard. We thought we were gonna win. We believed, and it didn't turn out good for my client. And I sulked for a week, questioning everything I did, questioning every choice and decision we made during the trial, questioning if I was good enough lawyer, questioning if I, asked the right questions or filed the right motions. And so you do that, and but you know, what I knew was that 100%, 110%, I gave it my all. There was not one thing I could have done left. There were things I could have done differently, but I exhausted myself. I mean, I gave my heart and soul to this case. And I knew when I was in a better mental state, I asked myself, Anne, could you have worked any harder? And the answer was no. There was nothing, there was no ounce of me that could have done any more work for this case. And it made me feel better because I 100% knew that answer. And then slowly started to tell myself, it's almost like forgiving yourself because, lots of people worry, I'm my own worst critic. There's nobody that could be harder on me than me. And lots of times that's true for people too, right? So it's really a lot of self-talk and having the mental awareness, because you could definitely sink in a state of mind and position of being depressed and feeling not good enough, when you have losses. And you can't win all the time. That's life. You might win a lot of the times, you might win most of the times, but you get stronger when you overcome your losses. And so I knew that. So it took a lot of self-talk and positive talk. I definitely, wasn't pleasant for the first couple of days, and I cried. I cried with my client, and my client was like, and the crazy thing is, my client was almost consoling me because I was more devastated, you know, because I wanted to win for her so bad that she was like, "It's okay, Anne. I know you did your best. Like, I saw you up there every day," and she was kind of like trying to make sure if I was okay. And so it's really weird. But no, it's hard. It's hard. It's not easy. It's one of the hardest parts of the jobs is, losing and not being able to get that justice for your client. But you have to pick up and you have to move on. And what I do is I give myself time. I say, Anne, you can cry today. You can cry tomorrow. But come Monday, you're done. You got to pick up. You got to move on. And that's kind of what I do. It's my thing. Anytime I have a loss or a negative or a pitfall or anything that happens in life, I let myself feel the emotions, and then I feel them 100%, and then I'm ready to work and move on.
That's really great advice. Thank you for being vulnerable with us and letting us know about that. With that being about 30 minutes, are there any last questions in the chat? All right, seeing that there are no more questions, thank you so much, Miss Anh Phoong, for being our guest speaker today.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys asked amazing questions, and I appreciate you guys, taking the time to have me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think we all learned a lot. Even your advice can be applicable to like all fields, I believe. It was really great. All right, well, everyone have a great
Thank
rest
you.
of your
Best of
day.
luck.
Thank
You
you.
too. Bye, everyone.